You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The two starters that I am projecting each have question marks. You got Derek McDonald and Gary Bryant. And just because I'm projecting them to be starters, A, it doesn't mean that they are going to end up being the starters, and B, I don't think either of them are necessarily going to have the longest leash in the world. So let's get to Derek McDonald first. 6'4", 230 pounds, a redshirt senior. He's really been with Syracuse through thick and thin. He's been with the team since 2021, where he redshirted that season. He took over as a starting linebacker in 2022 after initially being just a depth guy. He wasn't really supposed to play a whole lot in 2022, but after, unfortunately, a season-ending injury to linebacker Stephon Thompson, McDonald steps in and he kind of flashes. He plays pretty well, ends up with 43 tackles, 2 tackles for loss in 9 games, makes 8 starts in 2022. Then in 2023, he takes another step forward, right? He plays and starts in all 13 games, 67 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss. But then in 2024, I think we were hoping that Derek McDonald would take another step forward in development, maybe become an all ACC caliber linebacker, even if it's not first, second, or third team, perhaps just an honorable mention, but that's not what happened. He does play in 13 games, but he only makes 7 starts, 55 tackles, and only a half tackle for loss for the season. Derek McDonald is, by all accounts, a good leader for the defense. Obviously, he's been with the team for a long time. He's a good teammate. He works hard. In fact, his defensive coordinator, Elijah Robinson, said of Derek McDonald during the season, quote, "He's just so mature, so reliable. He's a guy that I'm glad that we have." All those things can be true, but what also can be true about Derek McDonald is when I watch him, I'm left with wanting a little bit more from him. He's someone where I can see his upside, but whether it's a missed tackle here or it's a missed tackle there, it just doesn't always seem to click all the time for a guy like Derek McDonald. And this year, speaking of being a leader, well, he might have to be a big leader for this team this upcoming season because he's not going to have Marlowe Wax beside him. Marlowe Wax has graduated. He's gone. It's Derek McDonald. And Justin Barron's also gone too, like I mentioned at the top of the podcast. Who's left? Well, got a guy like Derek McDonald. I'm happy they kept him. But are we really confident he could be a starting linebacker this upcoming season? Comment in the comments section below. Number 2, another guy who's projected to start, in my opinion, but has question marks. And that's Gary Bryant. 6'1", 230 pounds, redshirt junior. He is a transfer from South Dakota, an FCS school. And look, Gary Bryant, if you look at the numbers, he was excellent at South Dakota a year ago. One of the best linebackers in the FCS in 2024. He had an overall Pro Football Focus grade of 87.4. And for those that are unaware, PFF, it grades players on a scale of 0 to 100, 0 being the worst, 100 being the best. If you have a grade of 87.4 overall for the whole season, that's elite. That is a really strong grade, and he was good in coverage, in tackling, and in run defense. So he is a complete inside linebacker. The issue with Gary Bryant is that he is coming from an FCS program. For those that are or don't necessarily know the difference, if you're a power conference program like Syracuse is, you're playing in the FBS as well as some of the other conferences that are non-Power 4, Group of 5, I should say. Those are also FBS conferences. Well, then you have a step below that, which is the FCS. And it's not like in basketball going from mid-major to high major. We see that happen all the time with kids, and they end up thriving in high major. Sometimes they get even better when they go to high major, but that's not necessarily the case in football. The transition from FCS to FBS, it's a tongue twister. I know, I get it. I'm sorry. Is a lot more difficult than in a sport like basketball. but it can be done. It can. Jared Verse is a perfect example of this. He was a recent first-round NFL draft pick. He started at UAlbany, and then he transferred to Florida State, becomes an all-conference player there. I believe he was also an All-American. First-round NFL draft pick. Happened a couple years ago. So it can be done. And to be fair to Gary Bryant, he did have other high major offers, I should say. USC, Cal, and West Virginia offered him in the transfer portal. So I do think he could be a starting linebacker. I do think it's possible, but there is that question there of, okay, this is not South Dakota anymore. The first game Syracuse is playing is against Tennessee, and there's also Notre Dame on the schedule and a full ACC slate, which also features Clemson. A little bit different than playing at South Dakota. So, look, overall, with the starting linebackers and the linebacking unit in general, I do wish that Syracuse was a little bit more aggressive in the transfer portal this offseason. Could I be wrong about the unit in that it's a big question mark? Sure, I could be wrong, and I want to be wrong because I'm a Syracuse fan. I'm a Syracuse alum. I want them to win every game and win the national title. Could Derek McDonald step up and be an all-conference linebacker? Maybe. He'll have the opportunity to do it. Could Gary Bryant, I guess, answer the question really well, which is that can he make the transition? Perhaps he can. And Syracuse ends up having one of the better linebacking units in the ACC. But right now on paper, I look at it and I say they're missing something. And the something that they're missing is Marlowe Wax, because I don't really necessarily feel like they replaced him at least good enough. Obviously, there are some players that are easier to replace than others in college. I just think that Syracuse could have done a little bit more this offseason.